I'll point to West Virginia, the biggest surprise in the league, voted by the media to be in last place. They're at 4-1. If you would have told me and showed me the wins off season, preseason, I would have been more impressed than I am, because like you mentioned, Pitt, this has been a strong ACC team. They're just awful. They're 0-4 against the Power Five, have not gotten like crushed, but have not been largely competitive in these games. Phil Jurkovic's a mess, and they just don't have an offense. And so West Virginia, it's great what they're doing, but we need more data points. But them going to TCU as a double-digit underdog on the road, that's a little more meaningful to me.
I talked about this because I picked them like last or near last, whatever it was. And I talked about this on my show this past week. Neil Brown is like this really wonderful example of self-belief. And players deserve a lot of credit because they're the ones playing the game. But Neil Brown should have been fired, and his job was saved because of an odd financial situation at West Virginia. They're getting a new athletic director. He got a bad contract extension too. Like, all of these factors conspired together to help Neil Brown keep his job. And this thing could have gone a couple ways. He's recruiting really well for a guy that is kind of had a dead man walking feel to him before. And Mark, I went so far as to say, like, I thought he had to coach himself back on to the hot seat. That's how poor I thought the performances have been, just because at schools like this, you need to find identities. I grew up in Virginia, I'm a Virginia Tech fan, went to those games growing up. You know this too, Beamer ball, right? Special teams, defense, and then the quarterbacks, the quarterback play. They have a Mike Vick, Marcus Vick, Sean Glennon. He was kind of the outlier, but Logan Thomas's and Tyrod Taylor's, Gerard Evans, that all these really, the guys who could do dual threat guys who can make big plays. And that was kind of the identity of Virginia Tech football, special teams and some explosive plays and defense. And West Virginia has not had that under Neil Brown. And if they have, they've had it in fits and starts, and it's not consistent. This group has a very distinct identity. They run the football really well. They have a quarterback who can make electric plays with his feet. Not a great passer, but make electric plays with his feet. They've got a defense that does a fantastic job, I think, for the most part. Last week, they had a couple explosive plays against them, but they tackle pretty well. They hit. And they're a little bit. They're a lot tougher than everybody they've played so far. Like, Penn State's tough, but they were giving Penn State problems. Penn State could not really pull away, and that effort from West Virginia was very strong to me. I said, okay, I have something here. That Pitt game you mentioned, Pitt's not very good, but West Virginia was like, it's not a good roster, but they were losing players left and right, and it's next man up. And Nico Markel's a quarterback last week, plays a really terrible game, to be honest, against Texas Tech, but they won the game. They grinded the game out. They got to stop in the red zone to win the game. And this week, they needed, this is not a team that's built to come from behind. They came from behind. They blocking kicks, getting stops, not allowing, just the secondary played really, really well. They caused a lot of pressure. And I'm so blown away. And this is why, we talk about stuff at the top, Texas and Oklahoma, and we talk about Georgia and Alabama. Like a story like West Virginia this year, like, this is what college football is all about. This is that human side of it, where it's a guy, Neil Brown, that we all basically told him he was fired, and he's lucky he's getting the job. And he made a group of guys who everybody counted out. They all believe in him. They all believe in each other pretty clearly too. And it's a really special thing when you get to see this. And I don't know where it ends. I don't know where it goes, but I think, like, right now, this is one of those stories where I feel like we should really appreciate this, because I think it's cool to see we be wrong in a profound way. That's gonna, it's made a lot of the fan base deserves to be happy. And this team, they're not fun to watch, but they're really fun to watch, if that makes sense. The way they play is not aesthetically pleasing, but they're scheming up ways to run the football. Neil Brown said, I'm calling the plays. I'm going to go out on my sword. And it's fun. It's really fun story.
When I was posing the question, you delivered the answer in the same framework, but better than I would have, in regards to, yes, this West Virginia story. I hope people aren't missing this story and others like it across college football, super hyper focused about, the teams that you mentioned in Ohio State and Michigan. And that seems to be all we hear, at least on my channel, is everybody wants to talk about 4 or 5 teams all the time, which hopefully for the good of the sport, it's maybe more like a dozen teams this year that
Right.
could win a national championship, with USC, Florida State, others possibly being that good, and maybe not just 4 or 5 teams.